As the human population continues to expand, so does our confrontation with animals that typically used to inhabit the areas that we are moving into. Here in the Midwest, an animal I typically come in encounter with is the eastern box turtle. In most states in the US, most types of box turtles are actually protected by the state, meaning you can't harm them or take them from the wild. To someone who's not into reptiles, they will not know this and they think they are doing the animal a favor by taking it from its natural habitat into their homes. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what you should do if you ever encounter a box turtle in the wild. I'm Sam with Soda Exotics. Stay tuned.
After a while, I'm sensing a smile, a smile, a smile, a smile. After a while, I'm sensing a smile.
So to start things off, I actually want to jump into a little story about my life. The very first reptile I actually had was an eastern box turtle. When I was about 6 years old, I lived in Illinois with my mom, and she had a friend who had some reptiles. And I believed he had a Burmese python, a couple of geckos, and a cool little box turtle. And that was the moment I fell in love with turtles and tortoises, and they are by far still my favorite animal. So me being super excited about this and being a 6-year-old, he actually ended up giving me the animal. And I didn't know it at the time, but this was actually a wild caught animal. And knowing what I do know now, I regret the decision to take it, but it's a learning curve that I had to take to know what is better nowadays. Nowadays, I know that you should always buy a captive bred animal. You do not want to take an animal from its natural habitat into your own home. And what a lot of people may think is that they're doing this animal a favor. And the reason they're not is because, one, with these animals becoming less and less occurring because we are going into their habitat, they are becoming more rare. And because of this, we need to preserve that natural population of the animal. So what that means is that by continuing to take these animals from their natural habitat, even though we may think that we're doing it a favor by giving it a place it could 100% survive, we are still stopping the potential breeding of these wild animals, which continues to diminish the population in the wild itself. Well, you're gonna say, well, Sam, I found a box turtle just crossing the road and it needed my help. And this happens a lot. Box turtles, there is research done that shows that box turtles actually do not ever leave a 1 mile radius of where they're hatched. This is older studies that were done. I believe it and I don't at the same time, but regardless, I will never take an animal from the wild unless it absolutely needs help. And by help, I mean it has a severe injury where it has to go to a wildlife rehab center or your local wildlife manager that could help it become rehabilitated, then released back into the wild. So let's say you are possibly driving on the road and you just see a box turtle just sitting there in the middle of the road. It is more often than not either traveling, it could be possibly laying eggs, it could be out on that warm concrete to sun up and get some good UVB and some good heat so it can get energy. There's a couple of different reasons why it does this, but that's not really the important thing. The important thing, what you need to do is if you decide to try and help that animal, the way you can do this is if you have a glove, put a glove on, take the animal, and help it cross the street in the direction it was going. Turtles and tortoises are really stubborn animals, so if you actually put it back the way it was coming from and try to face it even towards like the woods or grass areas or whatever, they'll actually turn around and go right back, which increases the chances of it getting ran over by a car. So we want to help it go in the direction that it was going, and that's literally the only thing you need to do to help this animal. Now, for my job, I often go into people's homes because I treat them for pests, and I've seen a couple people who have had wild caught box turtles. And I'm not gonna go and tell them that I'm gonna call a wildlife officer to get them fined and tell them that they need to replace the animal, because it's, as much as I want to and have it be back established in the wild, I can't do that. I have a respect, and I understand these people thought they might be doing the right thing. So what I do is educate them. I give them a breeding guide. I show them information of everything they need to do. And sometimes people have a really good setup for them, and the only thing they're missing is maybe just a UVB light. But some people do their research and some don't. Now, with that being said, this isn't a care guide to how to take care of box turtles. There's many different types of box turtles, and they all have different care requirements. There's the eastern box turtle, there's the Florida box turtle, there's the three-toed box turtle. They all have different ranges. Some could possibly intertwine and come in contact with others, but most of them have an established range throughout the US. Now, let's say you do find an animal that has been injured severely to the point where it could be affecting its life. I am a person that believes you let nature take its course to some extent. If it's an animal that should be preserved in my eyes, like a box turtle over a red-eared slider, where red-eared sliders are considered invasive in a lot of places, as much as I would like that animal to survive, if it's beyond a point where it can be helped, then I just let nature do its course. But let's say I found a box turtle that was injured by getting hit by a car or something. I would contact my local DNR or wildlife manager, which you can easily find that on government websites. And more often than not, if that animal is savable, they can take it to a wildlife rehab center where it can get fully rehabilitated, released back where it's found, and live its long, happy life. And it continues to help support the local population, which is definitely the most important thing to do. As I mentioned earlier, as our population is expanding immensely, our encounters with wild animals have grown significantly. You look at, there's videos in India where people are coming into contact with these big cats that are attacking people, but that is because that is where their home range used to be. We, all over the US, it doesn't matter where, even like places like Canada and Alaska are super cold, the human population is just continuing to grow, and as that happens, we continue to hurt the wildlife populations. And being a lover of animals, I want to see that population thrive for as long as I can, because I want to be able to see that for myself, to explore it, to watch it, to see animals do their natural behaviors, which in time that might end for basically the world. We've spoken as a world where we need to stop 10 years ago, and us not stopping 10 years ago, it's already proven it's too late. I don't try to be a Debbie Downer here, but we really don't have much options because we are continuing to grow and it's hurting everything in the wild. So if you ever see a box turtle, just do the right thing, let it go about its way, help it across the street, and take a picture of it and just be about it. Now let's say you want one of these animals as a pet. They are super cool, they are super unique, they are outgoing animals, and they do funny things. There are ways to overcome this. With states that are illegal for them to keep because there's a native population, you can get certain licenses. More often than not, I think it's a CITES 1 license in order to keep some of these animals. You could also get captive bred animals, which is so important these days. There are plenty of breeders out there that literally have captive born animals and they raise and sell these to people. So you are not hurting anything from the wild. You're not taking away from the population, but you still get to experience what it's like to have one of these animals. So do your research. You can find tons of breeders out there. Just be very careful and make sure they're a legitimate breeder because you don't want to get scammed out of some money. But ask people around. You can definitely 100% find a breeder to keep one of these animals as a pet as your own.